you can't just buy a school bus and go off grid. There's a lot more that goes into it, and making sure that you have, I guess, your bases covered, if you will. I see a lot of Instagram feeds and whatnot that van life people and bus life people that are just like, I'm going to build this and then go. You can't do that. You got to make a little bit of a plan before. You can't just like say, I'm going to be off grid, but how are you going to do that? You got to answer that question before you try to go off grid.
Hello and welcome to For Your Grandchildren, the show where we talk about protecting the planet for future generations. I'm your host, Mike T. What does it mean to go off-grid? Truly off-grid. My guest today is Josh Michener, an environmental activist who converted a school bus into his home. He uses solar panels and recycled Nissan Leaf batteries to power all of his basic needs. Josh and I first met at Sacred Water Camp in Florida, where we were camped out trying to stop the Sable Trail pipeline from being completed. It was a pleasure catching up with Josh in this conversation, which at some points got emotional, as we relived some of our experiences at resistance camps. We discuss going off-grid, if green technology is now mainstream, and what are some steps folks can take to reduce their impact on the environment. I hope you enjoy listening to this conversation, as I sure enjoyed having it.
I've been trying to keep myself as much off the grid as possible. I have been out here in the middle of nowhere for about the last month and a half trying to homestead, and that's what I'm trying to do right now. I'm building bricks out of the sand, and I'm building bricks out of paper and burning them, and that's basically what I'm trying to do right now, is make sure that the survivability and quality of life of my daughter and her entire generation is better than what we had.
Okay, so you're out in the middle of nowhere with a school bus, right? Can you tell me a
Right.
little bit about the school bus there you got behind you? It looks pretty
Yeah.
cool.
I bought her, I named her Esmeralda. I bought her in July of 2016. And since then, I have still been building her. I'm not done. Nobody's ever done with a project like this. But since then, I have added 2 solar panels on the top. This one right here as an extra auxiliary one, just because I'm up at like 6,300 feet right now. I've got a fireplace that keeps me warm at night, and I don't have to burn propane. I don't have any fossil fuels anywhere inside of the bus. It's all electric and it's all wood. I cook with electricity. I heat with electricity. I cool with electricity. I refrigerate my food with electricity. It's all electric, run by the solars and the battery bank that I built, which is kind of one of my most proudful accomplishments, if you will.
Yeah, I've been watching your YouTube videos. For those of you who don't know, Josh has a YouTube channel where he shows us how to use Nissan Leaf batteries. You were the first person I contacted when I was about to buy my Nissan Leaf. I don't have it anymore, but that was a story.
Right.
So
Well, investments don't always work out.
yeah, but I wanted to know about what you're doing with those Leaf batteries. So what was your inspiration and how did you get started with that?
Ah, well, okay. Buckle up. uh,
Ready.
about 4 years ago, I decided that I needed a solar system for the bus that I hadn't even bought yet. But I needed a solar system that was going to be as powerful as anything off the shelf, easy to install, cheap as possible, and more importantly, environmentally sound, so that we didn't have to contribute to buying new lithium. Mining lithium is one of the worst things that we mine out of this earth, and it produces a huge carbon footprint and everything. So I decided to try to find a battery, and I couldn't find one, so I had to start finding modules and whatnot. And my older brother drove a Nissan Leaf for years, and he started telling me about the modules that were inside, and each one of them were 8 volts apiece. And if you do the math, you can put 3 of those together and make a 24 volt battery which is
Mm.
compatible with every off-the-shelf component you can find. There's 24 volt inverters. There's 24 volt converters down to 12, so you can still use all of your 12 volt devices and everything. It just made it really, really easy to incorporate that kind of the battery into the entire system without having to buy a whole bunch of other way more expensive components. So if you series the three of those together, you have a 24 volt battery that is 1.2 kilowatts for about $180. Nah, let's call it 220 right now. But either way, there's no way that you're going to buy 1 kilowatt of lithium ion storage for $220 from a brand name of anything. So it's about 1/5 the price of everything. And if I will, it's stronger, it's easier to use, it's safer, it's more powerful, it will last longer, it's easier configurable, and you can put it upside down. All it doesn't matter, and there's no venting. And most importantly, I guess I keep reiterating this one, is that you didn't have to poke a hole in the earth to get it.
So yeah, that's awesome. My Instagram feed is filled with people doing all kinds of van life conversions. Is this something that takes certain skill set, or is this something anyone can do?
No, that's why the YouTube is there. If somebody's going to buy two batteries and configure them together, that's as complicated as it gets. And it doesn't get any worse with the batteries that I'm using. It's just three. You've got positive to positive and negative to negative, and it's batteries are batteries. That's one of the things that I stress, is because they're lighter, smaller, easier to use. If you buy a lead acid battery or an AGM battery or a gel battery, they're going to be huge, and then you have to, excuse me, sorry,
You're fine.
move it all around and make sure that you have the angles right and everything. These things are 13 inches tall, 1.5 inches wide, and about 8.5 inches this way. And I've only got 6 of them, and those are over 3 kilowatts, and they've been powering my entire life. I can run an air conditioner, and refrigerator, a cooktop, and a skill saw simultaneously.
It's pretty impressive.
The best thing is how cheap it is. People are all about the economics of everything, and when you tell them that you can have the same kilowatts for 1/5 price, people start getting interested.
Yeah, I bet. So let's go back a little bit here. You Okay, so you were traveling around to a lot of different camps fighting pipelines. You okay if we talk about this a little?
Yeah.
And you were traveling. I know you had your dog with you, and this you showed up at Sacred Water Camp, which is shown in the film For Your Grandchildren. This podcast is also called For Your Grandchildren. Um,
That one.
what's that?
I think I made 2 cameos in that one.
Yeah, yeah. So you showed up there and you were cooking for everyone.
Yeah,
So
that's what I did for everybody.
you did a lot more than that too, but let's talk a little bit about cooking and off-grid and healthy living, because I know you at the time you had a Instagram account about vegan off-grid, right? What's going on with your cooking
It's
skills?
called the Great Food Bus. Uh, I decided to make a new account so that I didn't have to distract from the solar on the other account, because I really wanted the other account to be more about the bus and the solar. So I started the Great Food Bus so that I could demonstrate how I'm growing the food that I'm growing with nothing but solar power, how I'm preserving the food with nothing but solar power, and how I'm eating the food with nothing but solar power, and how I continue to do all 3 of those without any drop of fossil fuels. I have an electric rototiller right there that I use to cultivate my 1,500 square foot garden that I've been sustaining myself with since I got here. But obviously, I don't have one here yet. But the last 2 years, I was able to cultivate all of that and preserve a lot of that, and well, not a lot of it, all of it. And it's still in my bus. I'm still eating it right now. Like, I don't have to go to a grocery store. I'm using my stored up supply, and it probably won't last all winter. But when we get to that door, we'll open it. But right now, I'm still sustaining myself on dried beans, rice, and everything that I had preserved. And I did all that with the solar powered equipment from my bus. And it took me 2 years to get there. It's not something that, anybody is going to just instantly do. But I did it. I'm proud of it. I'm still here. And I'm out in the middle of, I'm 11 miles off the pavement and 98 miles away from a hospital. So I'm confident and safe feeling, I guess, if you will, in being here with what I've done and what I have, and I don't need anything else.
That's got to be a great feeling.
Yes.
Okay.
Back to the camps. I'm sorry, I forgot to get back to the camp.
No, that's fine.
Sacred Water was the, I guess, second stop on my tour, if you want to call it that. I went to North Dakota, which everybody knows about. I'm not going to drop names because that's not social currency. But after that, I went back home, sold everything, packed up, and then went to Florida. When I showed up in Florida, the only thing I had was my hands. And the only thing I knew how to do was cook. So I was like, hey, we've got a whole bunch of people here. They got to eat. So let me cook. And fortunately, they did. We made some food, and we made 3 pots of food every meal, 3 days a day, 3 times a day. We had a vegan, we had a gluten-free, and we had a omnivore, or whatever you want to call it. And I tried to wake up every morning and have it ready for anybody that was there. And that's what I did at every camp. From there, I went to Texas, and from Texas, I went to Colorado. From Colorado, I went to Pennsylvania. From Pennsylvania, I went to New York, and then back to Colorado. But that doesn't matter. All I had was my 2 hands and my knowledge of how to cook, and I found a niche that people appreciated, because if you just step in and say, hey, I'm going to take care of all of this, somebody gets to walk away, or 2 people get to walk away, and those 2 people get to do something else. And so that's what I was trying to provide, was just let me do this, because I've been doing it all my life and I can handle it. And they let me, and it was an extremely humble experience every time I went.
Yeah, it was good food too. It wasn't. That was one of the best I've ever eaten. Actually, some of the best times I've ever eaten. Yeah.
The 1-pot soups at Sacred Water. I know that we had 3 of them going, but they were all just one big thing but the fruit. You remember the fruit, that tray that we had? That was awesome.
Oh yeah, yeah. A lot of people came and donated a lot of food.
Yes. That guy that came with like a truck full of oranges. I'm like, what the shit are we supposed to do with all these? People ate them. So
Yeah. So speaking of donation and doing good, what advice do you have to people who are trying to get involved with either social justice or environmental causes, or just trying to live off grid? Do you have any advice you would give them?
yes. Uh, don't jump into it. Don't think that you're just going to do it all at once. Because that's what I thought, and I learned a lot of lessons that way. But you can't just buy a school bus and go off grid. There's a lot more that goes into it, and making sure that you have, I guess, your bases covered, if you will. I see a lot of Instagram feeds and whatnot that van life people and bus life people that are just like, I'm going to build this and then go. You can't do that. You got to make a little bit of a plan before. You can't just like say, I'm going to be off grid, but how are you going to do that? You got to answer that question before you try to go off grid, I guess is what I'm saying, is that having your water and having your power and having your shitter, excuse me, having your everything, your kitchen and everything, that's cool. But how are you going to do that somewhere else without the city or without the grid? Or how are you going to sustain that for more than a week, I guess? A lot of people decide that they're going to go off grid, but then they're like, we got to go to the landfill, or we got to go to the RV dump station, or whatever, and that's not off grid to me. That's still being part of society and very much connected to the grid. Getting off grid isn't hard. sustaining yourself off grid is the hard part.
Sounds like you have a little bit of a different definition of off-grid than some people might have. Can you kind of give us like what is this concept of off-grid anyway?
I definitely have, I definitely have a much different definition of off grid. Most people think of off grid as just getting away from the electricity, which is good. But if you're going to remove yourself from the grid, but still burn propane and gas or whatever for your stove or your heater, your water heater, whatever, that to me is still very much on the grid. Because why do people get off the grid? To get away from the fossil fueled grid. The grid is fossil fueled. So if you're just going to remove yourself from that electrical power, that's good, but you can't start burning more fossil fuels than it actually took to power the grid to keep yourself off grid. So if you're going to take yourself way out in the middle of nowhere, but still have a generator and still have propane heaters and still have propane water heaters and everything else, you're actually burning more fossil fuels than if you would have just stayed on, Circle Drive in suburbia. And a lot of people don't understand that because they think that the tiny little amount of that propane that they're burning is not significant. But it's not about what they're burning. It's not about their personal consumption. It's about the extraction process and the transportation process and the bottling process that it all went through to just get to you. Your tiny little bit of propane that you're burning might not seem much to you, but think about every step that it had to go through to get to you, and then it becomes extremely destructive, and you're not off grid at that point. I'm sorry, I'm not going to be apologetic about that one.
No need to apologize. This is that you've clearly worked hard to get to where you are with off-grid.
I like to call myself off grids because I'm off the electrical grid and I'm off the fossil fuel grid.
Oh,
So
nice.
I'm off both of them, and I do drive a car. I won't deny that. I do believe that my carbon footprint is one or two lifetimes in the negative at this point. And so if I drive a car, it's going to not even bring it back up into the red, I guess is what I'm saying. I don't want to brag. That sounds arrogant, but like what I've been doing for years and years has brought me to the point where I could drive a 18-wheel diesel truck for 300 days a year and probably not even bring myself out of what I've already accomplished. And I'm very proud of that.
As you should be. Do you think people should be quantifying and keeping track and keeping count of how much they're consuming and how much they're giving back, for that matter, too?
That becomes a very struggling headache. I mean, because if somebody's in a house in suburbia and they're trying to balance everything out, that's going to be more work and more stress than what you're accomplishing, in my opinion. I think it would be better to just say, let's not do this, let's not do that, and go from there without trying to calculate, like get rid of something, and then if you can't do it, you can't do it. I'm not expecting anybody to live like the way I am. I understand it's a very minimal and extreme lifestyle, but people can remove things. You could stop eating meat for 2 days a week. You can not buy a Coke at the McDonald's or whatever it is, whatever your habits are, stop one of them for a day a week. and just start from there. And I believe that there's a waterfall effect, because when you decide that I can do this for 1 day a week, why can't I do this for another day a week? But maybe I could do 2 things this week and 1 thing this week, or this day, I'm sorry. And it snowballs, I guess. I wish there was snow out here, but people, I think, try to bite too much. Maybe that's my point here, is that don't try to just eliminate everything. It's not like, it took me 6 months to get rid of everything and then move into a school bus. It's not a right now here type of Starbucks, gimme, but it will happen. I guess. I'm sorry, I'm rambling.
Thinking about the times we're in right now,
Uh,
if that's okay to go there. I
A lot of
feel like
people out here, a lot of new properties out here. I mean, I am 11 miles away from pavement, but in the last month and a half, I have seen people buy properties along here, and I asked them why, and they're like, because I don't know where else to go. I don't feel comfortable with the future, and they've all got guns, and they're scared, and that's frightening. It really is. That's not why I came out here, but when people decide to buy land and remove themselves from society because they're afraid of it, man, that's horrendous.
yeah, people are thinking that guns are going to be their security. What I found is food and community.
Somebody coming out this far, I don't know that I'd recommend that. I had a little bit of experience before coming out here, so it's not like I just up and took a school bus out into a 37.5 acre plot of land out in the middle of freaking nowhere at 6,300 feet above sea level. I don't recommend anybody do that without a little bit of planning. So as far as removing yourself that far, I think it's steps. You know, I learned a lot at all of those camps that I was at, especially Pennsylvania. They taught me a lot about how to be self-sustaining, how to build your own stove, how to make sure that you're conserving water and not dumping it out, and lots of things. That whole experience, all 19,500 miles of whatever it was something that you can't buy at a university. Like I mean, that's not something that you can just pay for. I paid for it, but the people that I met and the things that I learned and everybody that was along that way, Texas was extremely powerful, and I will never forget any one of them. Really, like those cups of cocoa in Sacred Water. We made 3 of them: vegan, omnivore, and gluten free. I'm
Yeah,
sorry, teary-eyed by this stuff.
it's okay. It's an emotional subject.
I
So,
spent time, energy, money, and blood, sweat, and tears, I guess. Yeah. The reciprocation that I got from Sacred Water Camp was probably one of the best, actually, because it was so face to face, and literally everything that I made was served to somebody, and they saw it and they thanked, and it was different than, not more important, but it was just different than Texas or North Dakota or Pennsylvania or New York.
so there's a lot of different environmental solutions to a lot of solutions to the energy crisis, right? We got wind, we got solar, and then from my research, it comes down to batteries where we can actually store this stuff,
Yeah.
right? So what's your thoughts on that?
Well, that's 100% or 110% accurate. Uh, I'm not saying that my batteries are the most efficient thing ever, because I know that there's better methods, there's better batteries, they're coming up with things that don't even contain lithium that have twice the power. Uh, they're just not in anybody's price range yet, and
Hmm.
they're not accessible as what I'm using. And that's really what I was trying to do from the beginning, is just make it as cheap and easy as possible. However, there's options out there if people are willing. It just takes a lot of work, like a gravity battery. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but it's a big hole in the ground, and it's like a weight that goes all the way down. During the day, when you have excess solar, that turns an engine that brings it up, and then at night that weight goes down slowly, turns a turbine, producing you power. uh, that takes a little bit of a setup, obviously, and not everybody is just going to be willing to dig a huge hole in the ground and do that. Uh, so the options that are on the market right now are basically wind and solar, if you want to get completely away from it all. I mean, but there's also the arguments of, what does it take to produce a solar panel? What's in one of these? You know, I can argue about the transportation and the bottling and the extraction of propane, but there's also those arguments for these. What I come down to is those statistics are much, much, much less for something like this. And in the year 2020, almost 2021 now, we don't have any other option to get more efficient. If they had a solar panel made out of dirt and something that I could make myself, that would be one thing. And they're getting closer to that. And they've got some options out there that are just phenomenal, but they're just way above anybody's price range. And so people have those two options. You can do wind, or you can do solar, or you can do both. Wind is more complicated than solar. You can put a solar panel anywhere and it's going to get your energy, and that's all you have to do. But if you want to try to harness the wind, then you need to get up 30, 40 feet in the air with a pole and 5-foot diameter, wings or whatever you want to call it. And it's just hard. And it's not as much. Like even if you get up there with like a 5-foot or one of those 5-foot diameter ones, it's like 600 watts. This is 300 watts, and those two are 300 watts a piece as well. It's a hell of a lot easier to do solar than it is wind, but a lot of people combine them, which is an awesome idea. I just don't have the money to do that yet. Am I rambling enough?
No, it's good. So like big technology, big environmental solutions. We're talking wind turbines, big solar fields, those PV,
Yeah.
what's it called? The steam energy, all those projects.
Yes.
Versus
I didn't even touch on the hydro. The hydro is very controllable, but it's not available anywhere unless you have water.
hydro meaning dams.
Well, you can make your own little dam, and if you divert a creek into your own little space and put a turbine right there, you can make your own and then just divert it back into the creek. You can turn your own electricity right there.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent for getting rid of large dams and putting in small dams.
Yeah.
And when I say small, I mean like on people's properties in the creek.
Not controlling an entire fish population.
No. Nope.
There's a lot of movements going in northern Idaho right now. They're trying to get rid of 6 different old dams that aren't even doing anything. They're not even producing power. They're just there. But they're also blocking the natural salmon migration coming back up from the ocean every year. And it would be nice to see those taken down, because they're not doing anything. The only thing that they're doing is providing protection from the towns downstream, because if they let them go, then, well, there'd be kind of a mess.
Yeah.
But they could do that. So it's not like you have to blow up a dam and just let it go.
Plus, if everyone builds a little off-grid bus and gets out of town, they're good to go.
Yeah. That would be ideal. But again, I don't expect anybody to do what I'm doing. It's pretty extreme what I'm doing. There's not very many people that just decide to go out in the middle of nowhere on a 38-acre piece of land and with no power, no water, nothing, and homestead.
Definitely.
I've been out here for about 2 months now.
Right. So there is a big let's call it green technology. I think that this is the year it's finally gone mainstream. So I don't know how much news you watch. Hopefully not much, but for your own sake.
There and Seth Meyers. That's about it.
Okay, but Tesla, right? Tesla is the biggest maker of electric cars, and today they actually are so big that they are included in the S&P 500, the big stock market
Really?
organization. So they're one of the biggest companies in the world right now. Did we do it? Is that it? Are we mainstream? Is green energy gonna be the takeover?
I appreciate everything that Elon's doing and Tesla and his missions to Mars and whatnot, but Tesla's not going to save the world. Excuse me. Tesla is contributing to more lithium-ion extraction than anybody else, and I know I've touched on that before, but it's safer, cleaner, and more cheap to extract oil than it is lithium. And he hasn't made any sort of like effort to mitigate that, I guess. It's just lithium, lithium, lithium with him, which is fine. It's better than lead acid and better than AGM. And I guess that goes back to, we only have certain options. But he's throwing a lot of money at one thing and nothing else. Rivian is doing the same, but they're also got hands and feet into the cobalt batteries, into those glass water batteries, and they're making an effort to go somewhere else rather than just rely on that South Asian whatever lithium deposit. And there's other companies too that are coming. I mean, it's too early to tell to see who's doing the most or who's doing the best. So I'm not going to say that Rivian is the one doing the best, but they've definitely taken more steps and gone in different directions more than Elon. And to be fair, that guy's got a lot of stuff going on. So for him to say, I'm going to divert, $6 million to cobalt battery research is kind of distracting when you could probably spend that on a Mars mission. I don't know what goes through his head.
Did you see their new batteries they're putting out?
The Tesla ones?
The Tesla batteries, they're talking about how they're going to mine lithium in a different way. They're going to take it out from the sand and put the sand back, and then all in Nevada. And yeah, so they are doing stuff to go in the right direction, in my opinion.
Not being informed enough. I didn't realize that. That's cool.
Yeah, so they have a new battery that's bigger and whatever that they're going to be putting in their cars in the next few years. So
I didn't know that. I apologize for not being educated enough. Like that phone right there is the only thing that I have for media. So when I don't see something, I don't see something. But thanks. I need to look more into that. I know Tesla is, at the top of the line of everything, and definitely the most popular sold. Their numbers are undeniable, but I didn't know that they were trying to move away from lithium. So that's cool. I know that their battery packs are a headache to work with, but maybe they're going to change that.
Maybe. I don't know. I haven't taken apart a Tesla car, so
I have looked at a battery pack or two of Teslas, and they are a nightmare. If you get one, that usually both cars or all cars have like two or three, but if you get one, it's like 400 individual cells all in this thing, and then you have to manage that if you're going to use it for something else. And it's just, when I was comparing between Tesla and Nissan, I was like, this is stupid. I could have 2 terminals or 400.
Yeah, and Nissan batteries, you didn't mention this, but they're super available now. You can order them online. You can go to the junkyard and pull apart one.
Yes, at techdirect.com or techdirectclub.com. You can buy, I think they're individually right now for about $79. They've got all kinds of different like put together packs with or without a BMS, or you can buy the BMS separate, 28 or 24 volt or 48 volt. And you can actually save yourself 12% and get free shipping with my Dortoka code, DORTORKA.
And I should mention that I'm not sponsored by this company.
No, I don't know that I'm actually sponsored. They just gave me a code because I started selling so many batteries.
Oh, and, nice.
You could call it an affiliate, I guess. Like it's not like I'm not advertising for them. That's just what I have to offer.
Well, I'll put that in the show notes, the code, so people can access. People who are interested can really start getting into this.
Right, and anybody, I mean, somebody that's just going to see this is going to be, a little bit apprehensive. I am more than willing to spend as much time as possible with anybody on the phone, texting, videos back and forth, pictures back and forth, to explain what I've done, how I've done it, why it works, how you can do it, and walk you through the entire process, step by step, wire by wire, source by source, price by price. And I've been saying that for 3 years now, and I'm really, really adamant about it because I have time, and we can't save the world if nobody knows how.
Mm. Yeah. Well, thank you for spending some time with me today so that we can talk about this. We got a few more minutes. We can talk a little bit about the camps. Um, that was some times, huh? So for anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about, we're referring to what began at Standing Rock in North Dakota, which is a reservation, and there was a pipeline going in there called the Dakota Access Pipeline.
Yeah.
This was 2016 in
Roles when it started.
right. So when did you first go out there? What was the date?
I got there October 28th and
Okay.
spent till December 4th. I got to see a lot of the, I guess, medium memorable notes or times, if you will. I was on 1806 on December 14th when the doctor came up, and I got pictures of that. I was there for the bus crossing on the bridge. I spent most of my time was at Rosebud on the other side of Cannonball River. I wasn't actually in Oseti. I was back over working with and for Madonna and her kitchen.
I also was at Rosebud when I was there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I helped dig that spud cellar, and I helped move everything out of that stupid hoop house that everything was freezing.
Oh,
Uh,
I was there before you, so I guess I left a little bit before you got there, or around the time you got there, maybe. So,
Possibly. I there was a lot of people there, and I met a lot of people. Some of the strongest people in the kitchen, that met me there every morning at 5 in the morning and started boiling potatoes and whatnot for breakfast, were some of the strongest memories that I have from that place. We were able to give Madonna a break from that. That's what I took most away from it, because I showed up and gave somebody else a break. And so it didn't matter that I had to be there at 5 in the morning. Somebody else didn't have to be there at 5 in the morning. So that's what I tried to do every time I was there. And there were 2 or 3 other people. I'm not going to drop names, but they were there at 5 in the morning every single day as well. And that kind of commitment, that kind of motivation keeps you coming. Like, we're not working for money. We're working for the water. Sorry. From there, we went down to Florida. Let's just drop, river names: Cannonball, Sewanee, Rio de Janeiro, and the creek by the property in Pennsylvania. I've got a water bottle full of all of those water.
wow.
My motivation for going to every one of those places was to cook for people. Like I said before, I have 2 hands and I only know one thing, or one thing well. And I was able to relieve somebody in every one of those places. Every place that I went, somebody else got to do something else because I was there. Something that they wanted to do, but they couldn't because they were cooking or cleaning dishes or whatever. And when somebody steps up and just says, "Hey, I got the kitchen, go away," that opens up opportunities for people. And that's what I try to do. I only had 2 hands.
Yeah. No, it's I want to say infectious almost when you get there to just want to help, just to in any way you can, any way you know how. I
Yeah.
mean, when I was at Standing Rock, what I was doing was digging compost piles, building compost piles. So I was shoveling food scraps into big piles. That was one of the things that I was
It's
able to contribute there. It's what I knew, and it's how I was able to help, and I was happy to do it. And
somebody needs to do that, and you made it easier for somebody else.
I hope so. um, so yeah, we okay. So Florida, you had what? How many did you say? 6 camps where you at? 7?
North Dakota, Florida, Texas, Colorado, Pennsylvania, New York. So 6.
What do
New
you?
York wasn't really a camp. It was just a kind of, I'm going to support you guys for a couple of days.
And these were all pipelines that were going in. That some frack gas, some oil,
Some,
um,
yeah,
some,
Pennsylvania was both. Pennsylvania
yeah.
was one of the most intimate experiences that I had. I spent a lot of time at Standing Rock, but it was a lot of people and it was a lot of things going on. But in Pennsylvania, it was a dozen or less people all the time. And I learned a lot. And I learned restraint, I guess. You don't fight a pipeline with anger. You don't fight a pipeline with aggressiveness. You fight a pipeline with patience and you figure out how to do it. And that's what I learned from Pennsylvania.
It's a great lesson. I ended the film or near that end with Betty Osceola talking about um, if you go over to a war, you're using violence. You're using so it's really important the word choice we use that we're not fighting. Yes, we're trying to stop something, but we're trying to heal the people. And I'm paraphrasing her words here.
Right?
We're trying to heal.
I shouldn't have said fight. You're right.
No,
Stop.
that's
Word.
that's that's fine. However you want to look at, but yeah. So we're in like what you're doing. The work you're doing now seems very healing. You're trying to heal the earth, trying to um, make
Right.
grow good food, trying to keep it clean with the energy that you're using. Yeah.
I'm trying. At this point, I don't have much of an option. It's not like I'm going to plug into the grid out here. The nearest well is 11 miles away.
What do you do for water?
Go get it from there.
Oh,
That's a
you're
hard
not
option here.
you're not harvesting rainwater yet.
I set up a tiny little still in the ground, and that gives me a little bit of laundry water. But I haven't. I made one that was huge, but it was too big, and the wind blew it and tore it apart and whatnot. But there's definitely a better option to just make like a 3x3 type situation. But it's also the sun keeps getting lower and lower and lower every day, so uh, distilling water in the ground is not much of an option in November at 6,300 feet above sea level. So next year, yes, but I kind of have to take the seasons at what they're doing here.
And before we go, do you have any last thoughts or message you want to send out to the world, to the people watching and listening?
Yeah, I've talked a lot about how scary it's being off grid and how hard it is to get there. But the process of starting that is not that scary. You can do it. It's just nobody's going to do it overnight. And don't be scared to make that first step, I guess. Get rid of your bed or sell your dresser or get rid of something out of your living room. It doesn't downsize and start that process. And it's not something that you need to do all at once. So don't try to do it all at once.
Well, this has been a fascinating conversation. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun for me.
And now, environmental news. Today is day 805 of the Yellowfinch Tree Sit Blockade, which blocks the path of the Mountain Valley Pipeline. The Sits have been protecting some of the last remaining trees in the path of the Mountain Valley Pipeline for 805 days. That's over 2 years. Current tree sitters have been resisting a court order to leave the blockade. This news comes a day after Tesla was added to the S&P 500 stock indices, which follows the largest 500 companies in the world. I am no expert on the stock market. In fact, for much of my life, I thought the stock market was something that distracts people from small companies and organizations making positive change in the world. However, I believe the electric car and energy company doing so well in the stock market so quickly shows the desire for green technology and alternative energy to that which the fossil fuel industry and companies like those behind the Mountain Valley Pipeline offer. This was my first time hosting a podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and want to hear more content about people working towards protecting the planet for future generations, please subscribe to the show. I would like to invite you to view For Your Grandchildren documentary, which, as of the time of this recording, is available for free on YouTube. Just search For Your Grandchildren Film. The link to the film, as well as Josh's YouTube and Instagram, will be in the show notes. You also can find that discount code for used batteries.